So I recently, and by recently I mean exactly 1 week ago, started a new hobby, bobbin lace making. And ever since I started, I've been posting some updates on my Instagram and my coffee, and people have been asking me a lot of questions about it. So I thought I'd answer them here, and I hope that I leave you with some resources, some answers, and some inspiration so that maybe you'll start your own either bobbin lace project or pandemic hobby, because why not? Bobbin lace making can actually start at home with the things that you probably already have on hand, which is awesome. This seems like a really great hobby that just low cost, low commitment. You can start at home and then you can go deeper and pay for the better materials and pay for the classes if you want to. Let's go over what I've learned. The first question I get about bobbin lace making is, why did I start this? What inspired me? So the 3 things that happened were I stumbled upon Lactok, I got a gift certificate, and I had nothing better to do. So I stumbled upon Lactok, which is basically lace making TikTok. And it's awesome. If you haven't found it yet, look for #Lactok and follow some amazing makers there. They will just show you the cool stuff they're doing and even tell you some really cool history. During my travels on Lactok, I ran across Erenanaomi, and I will put her screen name here, and she's awesome. She does a whole history of and really cool events that happened around lace, from murder trials to anything else. It was really awesome, and I followed her. Weeks later, she had a video on how to get started. It was a TikTok length, a minute less on how to get started in bobbin lace making. It really made it seem simple, and I kind of went down a little rabbit hole from that. I wasn't eager to get into it, but after I saw that clearly I could just try this out with stuff I had at home, I was kind of hooked. The other thing that happened to me was I won a gift certificate from my local costume guild. The Greater Bay Area Costumers Guild had their little open house in January, and they had giveaways for some gift cards at the end. And I won a gift card to Lacemaking. So Lacemaking is a local, amazing lace kind of museum, walkthrough museum, and also supplier. So they have tons of notions, not only for lace, but any of these amazing decorative arts that you could think of. They have it all. Basically, Lacemaking is awesome. It's a small little space here in the Bay Area, and I had always wanted to kind of get into some really cool other crafts besides the ones that I'm into, and I thought, okay, I have this gift card. I for sure am going to spend most of this on notions that I need, like a busk and a couple of other things for some cosplays I'm working on. But why not buy some bobbins while I'm here? The walls are lined with amazing vintage lace, beautifully done vintage clothing, hats, the whole 9 yards. So when you think about lace, don't think about doilies, because it's beyond the doily. Although I do want to make a load of doilies. So I had this gift certificate for Lacemaking from GBACG, and I was just like, I'm getting my notions, I'm getting all the things I need for my different ongoing projects that are on my pile, but I'm gonna splurge. I'm gonna splurge on some bobbins. I only spent $24 to get started in this hobby. And again, I could have spent $0 really if I wanted to, but I splurged. So the other thing that got me really into this and excited for this was that I've been trying to build an Edwardian wardrobe, and what better way to procrastinate more on finishing my corset than starting a new hobby that's kind of tangential, but not the actual project that I need to finish. Real talk though, I've been loving doing insertion lace for all my Edwardian stuff, and if you see here, I even revamped an old skirt and tried to do a couple of the skills that I learned from my Edwardian under things and use it here, from insertion lace to little pleats here. Yes, I'm wearing a skirt as a top now. Congrats. So I've been making bobbin lace for a week. How am I doing? I'm having a great time. It's really fun, it's really cool, and it actually reminds me a lot of some childhood crafts that I worked on. If you've ever been in Girl Scouts and you've made friendship bracelets, or if you made those chokers in high school with the fishing line, or if you were into hemp crafts when you were, in your hippie phase, like some of us, this will probably be a really easy craft for you to take on because you're just kind of making knots and you're braiding. So if you've done anything with thread that involves that, I think you'll be fine. I honestly think too, if you've done crochet or knitting, the concepts might be similar enough that you can kind of get into it. So far it's been really fun, and I have major respect for the folks who still do this craft. I totally understand that industrialization and machinery have really impacted this. But it's fascinating to see that this has existed and been really popular as a craft since the 1500s and earlier, and how it ebbed and flowed in time as far as popularity. I feel like even with machinery, there's always going to be some love for this handicraft because it is so different and so cool and pretty fun. So TLDR is I had a ton of fun doing it, and I want to keep making stuff and hopefully get good enough to make my own designs, because I really want to make some nerdy designs and have nerdy insertion lace for my accordion clothes. So when I started sharing my progress and that I was doing this, I loved the responses I've gotten. People are really excited to see this craft. People have so many questions. Again, as I said before, lots of questions. I hope I answered them all here, but so far everyone's been really eager to see the progress and also just really intrigued by this. I have had a lot of people who say that either they have a grandparent or someone in their family who tried to teach them this, or who's done this, or they have the supplies and they want to try it out. And to that I say, do it. So a lot of people had questions about this hobby as far as like, they wanted me to do tutorials, and I'm not going to do that yet because I just started and there are already people out there who've done the tutorials. So instead I'm going to be posting a list in the description, and you should be able to check out those tutorials yourself and get started there if you want to. I'm not skilled enough, I think, to do that because I've only been doing it 1 week. But I really love people's enthusiasm, and I thought that, you know, maybe if I do a video showing you how you can go from a week's work to a kind of piece of lace, that maybe it would make you think like, okay, this isn't going to be an insurmountable thing. I can definitely do this at home with the supplies I have, and it can be fun. So there are tons of videos out there that go through the depth and breadth of history. Again, I will put some in the description below, but I do want to explain the basics of bobbin lace, which is you're using bobbins, which are these little wooden dowel-y things. They're going to be worked in pairs. You're going to wrap them with a certain amount of thread, and you're going to have them on a pillow of some kind. And then you're going to have a pattern and pins. And basically you're going to be pinning at the top. You're going to have some pins, and you're going to loop the bobbins to hang off of that. And then you're going to have the bobbins go back and forth with the other bobbins, depending on how many you need for your pattern. And that's bobbin lace making as a TLDR. So what do you need to get started? You're going to need bobbins of some kind. You're going to need some kind of thread. And again, for your first things, it doesn't need to be wooden bobbins like these or even like the official thread. I haven't used actual tatting thread yet in my adventures. I've just used what I had on hand. The other thing you'll need is a kind of pillow or a thing to poke things into, a pattern, and I will again put free patterns in the description, and pins. So you'll need little pins to prick the card and to do stuff with. Bobbins. You can have these wooden bobbins, you can do C44s, you can do anything kind of around the house. I've seen people use pens for this, like writing pens where you have the stuff looped here and you have them in pairs. It's up to you. Again, I'm going to link to some tutorials on how people have done this, but you pretty much just need a couple of things that you can wrap cord around and have a little bit of weight on that you can move around each other. But definitely check out some of the things I'm going to leave in the description because I think they will be very helpful in seeing how the pros have literally used hot glue and skewers to make awesome bobbins that totally work. Thread. You're definitely going to need thread of some kind. I used, for my first goes, the thread that I have on hand, and I have yet to buy the actual cording that I need for tatting and stuff, but I'm just going to be real with you that I used what I had on hand. I used 3 different colors to start off with, and I feel like it really helped because it really helped me see which pairs were going where and see my mistakes, because it was really easy to see the colors that were going in and out of things versus when I made my all black lace, where I'm sure I definitely made some mistakes along the way, and it was harder to find like when I had accidentally twisted something that wasn't supposed to be twisted or not joined something completely. So if you're doing this, I'd say, you know, use whatever threads you have on hand and try doing each bobbin pair with a different color of thread, because it will be easier if you are unsure of yourself to see where the thread is going and to understand the pattern, but also to fix your mistakes because it'll be right there and easy to see. The other thing you need is a bobbin lace pillow, and that is what I made here. This is just a piece of cardboard that I put polyfill over, and then I put a layer of felt over it, and then a layer of fabric that I had on hand. I will show you the shape of this pillow right now. It's just this. The back is kind of ugly. Usually I have this in the living room on top of another pillow that sits nicely on my lap, and I put twill tape here to hold my dowels in place for the bolster pillow I made. Bolster pillows are going to be useful if you're making this long kind of repeated pattern. If you're making a line of lace, you'll want a little pillow like this probably. So what is this bolster pillow made of? Fun story. It is made from a kitchen skewer that you see here. I cut off the sharp ends and it's pulled through. It is made with a pool noodle. There's a part of a pool noodle in here. And then pool noodles usually have like a little hole in them. So to stop that up, I used a little bit of foam. I made the exact circle size I needed for this foam. And then I cut a small hole in it for the skewer to go through so that it could be bolstered. So after I glued that in place, I covered all of the noodle, the foam noodle, with felt and with fabric. And then I just slide this in and it's in place. So that's pretty much all you need to get started on something. And as far as tutorials go, these are the ones that I use. On YouTube, if you look for Kaja SR, and I'll put that in the description and hopefully in the little graphic here, they have a bunch of tutorials on how to not only figure out how to use stuff in your house to make bobbin lace, but also how to get started, like winding your bobbin and then doing your first little zigzag pattern, your cloth stitch. So check them out. Definitely look into their stuff because it's great. It's super helpful. And again, this is showing you the basics for free. The other person that I found super helpful was Bryce Adams, and they have a ton of tutorials as well, reinforcing all the basics and showing you, again, the depth and breadth of this hobby. So I think it's really good, at least for me, to see not only the really basic stitches, but it was really great to see somebody also doing the more complicated stuff so that I knew like the concepts are building up to that. As far as websites go, linkslace.com was actually a great resource. The site is a little older, but everything is still valid. Like, this is an old craft. Everything still makes sense. So if you're okay with using a little bit older site and navigating that, it's totally worth your time. It's probably not going to work on mobile too well, but it's 100% a great collection of lessons and free patterns. And not only in bobbin lace, but like there's other different lace making that they have tutorials on too. So if you're like, I kind of want to get more into needle lace, just check out their sites because they have a ton of resources collected there. So for the first piece I did, which is the basic cloth stitch, and then I kind of freehanded after, all the places I just talked about have this basic cloth stitch. Lynx lace will have the pattern that you can print out and do this on. This is like the most basic thing. I think everyone must start out with this because of how often I see the cloth stitch out there. So find that pattern and start there, I'd say, because it really helps you get the idea of the concepts and just doing it. So after I did the most basic thing, the cloth stitch, I wanted to get better. So I found an amazing resource. Katharina Wason has an awesome site. It's more geared toward Renaissance lace making, but she has samplers. Definitely check her out because she has a sampler that I tried that is actually amazing. This is the first sampler I did, and it really builds you into understanding like, how do you plait? How do you do joins? How do you do these really interesting twists off the side and bring them back in, and how do you interlace something? I didn't give myself enough thread here to go a lot farther, and as you go you'll get better at figuring out how much thread you need for each pattern. I trusted WikiHow, which told me just to do from my nose to my arm. That was incorrect. Don't trust WikiHow for that one. So I had to restart the sample. So on Friday, while I was watching Coming to America 2, I started this, which goes from, again, like the kind of basic building off of each other. And it's just like, it's so good. When I was done with the most complicated one, I just started again. I literally just kept going in a circle. So I started again. I went from the most complicated to the most basic one on her sampler and just went again. And I actually really like this because I could see the difference between the first time I did it and the second time. And I think that's really important because literally between these three, I learned so much about my core tension. I learned so much about making these pleats. And I got way more comfortable understanding all of that and spacing all of that. So I definitely say if you get started in this, try the samplers, repeat your process again and again, because you're only going to get better at this. Check out how other people are doing it. Different people have different tips and different styles on doing this. I quickly progressed because I'm ambitious and I just wanted to see how it would look. So I tried doing some black lace. I didn't use fancy thread. I just used embroidery thread that I had on hand. So it's not great, but this really helped me really get the hang of doing repeated patterns, doing intricate patterns, and also, most importantly, working with the same color thread. Because I'd been getting really used to the ease of noticing where everything was with the contrasting threads, but being able to work with one colored thread was actually a super big challenge, and I think it was just good for me to get out of my comfort zone and work with something harder. And also it's really cool to see the progress that I made here. Seeing my improvements and how I'm feeling out the tension and where the threads need to go a little bit better is just awesome to see. And it's just cool. It's a cool hobby. So here are the remaining questions I got from y'all when I put a call out for questions on my Instagram. What books or tutorials am I using? I am not using any books right now, although there are tons of books and tons of book recommendations out there when you get into this, so check those out if you want and if you can. I am using all of the things I just talked about as far as free patterns, free tutorials, all of that. Again, I will link them out in the description. Some folks had questions about how the bobbins are prepared and how much thread you need. So again, check out the tutorials I talked about just prepping your stuff. As far as how long the thread needs to be, I'd say definitely, if the pattern doesn't tell you, if you're just doing a sampler, I used my measuring thing and I did how many of these? I just did 1, 2, 3, 4 passes of this. Let me do the math on this. Math. I did 72 inches. I thought that was a really good amount because I definitely was just like, that was too little. And I definitely thought I need to up my skills on this. So I'm going to repeat this sampler again when I go around the circle, which was great. I'd say you definitely want to do more than, as WikiHow told me, from my nose to my hand. That was not helpful or correct. The other thing I got questions about was about like keeping track of your threads. How do you keep track of your bobbins? And how do you remember where you've stopped? So how do you keep track of your bobbins? I'd say when you're starting out and you only need like, 6, 12 bobbins, having them, so you're pairing your bobbins. And so basically having those alternating threads at start, I think will be really helpful in understanding where they are and what's paired with what. Some people will get the fancy bobbins, and this is actually really cool because if you look in the museum collection, people have been decorating their bobbins for a long time, whether through the little loop of wire that you'll see with beads on them, so you see little matching beaded patterns, or through people decorating the bobbin itself with writing or paint or whatever. So there are different ways to do this. I'd say experiment, see what's comfortable for you. If you don't want to like mark up what you're using yet, you know, use tape, use whatever you have around the house. Hair ties, there are different colors. Rubber bands, there are different colors. Do little things like that. I don't know, wine stem decorations, you know, whatever will fit on this so that you can learn to keep track of them. I just use alternating threads on these so that I would know then what's paired together. The last question I had was, if you pause, how do you remember where you've left off? So every video I've seen has a different method and different people have different ways of like remembering this and marking this. So I will explain a couple of them, but I'd say definitely use whatever works for you. The first one is people sometimes work on the diagonal. So they'll, you know, kind of work on the top down and just kind of do it that way. So you always are kind of moving down a pattern a certain way. I definitely think you could use a special pin. Like if you have one of these, if you have a corsage pin or something that looks different, you want to put like a rubber band on it or something, you just pop it in the pattern so you know exactly like, I need to start off on this piece. I think that could be really helpful. I will say so far while I've been doing this, I don't necessarily need to mark off where I stopped off because I can tell when I'm reading the pattern when something stops. I think anyone who starts this will get good at understanding this. I can see like, oh, I can twist this to this point before it needs to join something. So I will twist this, put a pin in it, and then I will circle back and I will do the other. I just had a realization that put a pin in it. It's probably from Lacemaking. That's why you circle back, because I'm like, we're just using office terms. Wow, I'm having a moment. Anyway, for me, it's really easy because I will notice on the pattern basically, and I'll work the cords up to where it needs to go, put a pin in it, and then I will work the next chord. So it's like, okay, what pair of things need to then intersect with that? Well, I'll make sure that gets done. Does that chord need something else done? Does it need to join another thing before it gets there? Okay, so I kind of am just doing it top down, where I'm doing the next bit until it needs a pin, and then I will do the next bit until it needs a pin, until it needs to join with something, until it needs the other threads to go. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but that's kind of mentally how I do it, where it's just these all need to meet in different points, and I work up until the next meeting, then I work up into the next joining. They're called joins. So I work up into the next join, work to the next join. And it seems pretty easy after that. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope this has been really helpful. I really enjoy this craft. I really enjoy this as like a new hobby. It's really fun to have in front of me, like on my lap while I'm watching TV after dinner. I'm not perfect yet, but I think it's really cool to start a thing and to see your progress, especially again, like with the sampler. If you just do a circle like I did, where I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go in a circle again, because I gave myself a ton of extra cord to do this. It was really cool to see that kind of progress. I think with any craft, you're gonna have those stops and starts at the beginning, right? Like you're gonna have the, I'm not perfect yet. Everything needs a little bit of extra help. I'm learning, but like that's what we do, right? Like I'm not perfect at sewing, but I also like have gotten way better than the first time I tried a sewing machine. It's just all in learning a craft and finding joy in it. So I hope this inspires you to take up either bobbin lace or a new hobby, because I think these are super fun things just to get into, and there are super cool communities around them. And I love sharing cool crafts with people. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you would like to like and subscribe to this video, that would be great, because that's what I do now. And also I will be launching a Patreon, so check out the linkage below for more.